Welcome, everyone. My name is Max Steinman. I am the creative director for the Social Dilemma Impact Campaign at Exposure Labs. Before we get started, I want to acknowledge that I'm joining tonight from Denver, Colorado, the traditional homelands of the Ute, Cheyenne, and Arapaho people, and acknowledge that many of us are visitors tonight on Indigenous lands. For those that aren't familiar with our film, The Social Dilemma, it features interviews from former social media executives blowing the whistle on their own creations. Through their testimony, we learn that social media algorithms that prioritize outrage and engagement at any cost are compromising our society's ability to engage in constructive conversation and find common ground. That's why we teamed up with Newsweek and the Washington, D.C. and Boston Urban Debate Leagues to create the Social Dilemma Debate Project. The project seeks to combat this polarization by educating and empowering a new generation of strong debaters to share their views and advocate potential solutions to social media's business model. This project is part of our impact campaign's commitment to empowering Gen Z, both inside and outside the classroom. Gen Z is a critical force in solving our shared dilemma. They are on the front lines of feeling the impacts of social media. Some of the ways we're doing this inside the classroom is we are developing free and accessible resources that help educators use the film as a teaching tool, including a 40-minute educational cut of the film that will be rolling out next month. Outside the classroom, we're offering grant and mentorship opportunities to empower Gen Z to create and demand better technology, more humane technology solutions. To educate Gen Z inside the classroom, the Social Dilemma Debate Project has three components. The first is today's public debate, where Washington, D.C. and Boston Urban Debate League students will be debating a question that the social dilemma leaves us to ponder. Should we change how social media is regulated? The second component is our free classroom debate resource. This resource was developed in partnership with Urban Debate League students and supports educators in hosting a debate similar to the one you'll see today in their own classroom. I'll share a little bit more about that resource a bit later in our event. And lastly, after using the classroom debate resource, students can submit 2-minute argumentation videos to summarize their proposals online. Throughout the school year, we'll be selecting the top videos and sharing them with issue experts, policymakers, and advocacy partners. Our hope is to connect the voices of the most impacted by these platforms with those actively working on solutions. I want to note that tonight's debaters are offering just 2 potential arguments for our big debate question. There are so many ways our broken information ecosystem can be fixed, and we need all your ideas and voices to solve the problem. We hope tonight's event will serve as a model for those tuning in that you can take back into your community. We'll be posting a recording of the event that will include closed captioning on our website to help make our materials as accessible as possible. And we can't wait to see what kind of proposals you come up with. So with that, I'll pass it over to Rainer Fogus, Senior Program Manager at Boston Urban Debate League, who will be our MC for the evening and help introduce our debaters and our panel of judges.
Thank you, Max. Welcome again, everyone. As Max said, my name is Rainer Fogus, and I'm an employee of the Boston Debate League, and I'm also a former debater. I am honored to be your MC tonight, and I have to add, also excited as we get to see 2 teams debate on the topic of social media and how it should be regulated. And before I introduce the debaters, I would like to invite the audience to introduce themselves in the chat. And I know there are many of you here, and put any questions you might have in the chat as well, and we'll try our best to answer them. And without much further ado, I would like to introduce the debaters, starting with the Boston Debate League team. We have Richme Cherry with the Boston Debate League team, Zara Mercer, and with the Washington Urban Debate League, we have Kesuranu Baylor And then we have Kaylee Remlaw. Debaters, please, as you introduce yourself, please share your name, grade, school, and one thing you love about debate. Rishmi, we can start with you.
My name is Richmond Sherry. I am a junior, 16 years old at the Henderson Inclusion School. One thing I love about debate is learning about new topics. I feel like when you know about what's going on in the world, you are less ignorant in a way, and you're aware of what's going around you. And I love talking about it with others and hearing other opinions and learning more from others. And yeah, that's what I love about debate.
Hello, my name is Zyra Mercer. I am a junior at the Henderson Inclusion School. I'm 17. And one thing I love about debate is, I guess, the arguments that you come across. Sometimes you never think about something, then you get into a debate round and someone just comes up with something that's just so unique and creative that you just sit there after, you're just like, wow, I can't believe that actually happened. So, yeah.
Okay, I guess I'll go. Hi, my name is Kaylee Ramlaw. I'm a senior. I'm 17 and I go to Duval High School in Maryland. And one thing I love about debate is the competition of it. When you get to see so many other passionate people who are passionate about the same things as you are, it definitely gets me excited. It gets me really happy to be participating in this activity.
And lastly is me. My name is Kesserani Baylor. I'm a junior at Eleanor Roosevelt High School and I'm 16 years old. One thing, I participated with WUDO since 7th grade, and one thing I really love about debate is that it forces me to think critically and to be efficient with my words, and how it's not always about the denotation, but about the connotation, and it really helps me to get my point out very, very well.
Absolutely. Thank you, debaters, for introducing yourselves and letting us know what it is that you love about this activity. Moving forward, I'd love to introduce our distinguished judge panel for this evening. Thank you, judges, for making the time to judge this round. And starting at the top, we have Rishi Barwani, Partnerships and Policy Director at Accountable Tech. Next, we have Nancy Cooper, Global Editor-in-Chief at Newsweek. And we have the Chief Deputy Attorney General for DC, Jason Downs, joining us as well. Next, we have Ariel Fox Johnson, Senior Counsel of Global Policy at Common Sense Media. And last but not least, we have Jeff Seibert, Film Subject and former Head of Consumer Product at Twitter. Judges, you have about a minute to introduce yourself, and please share your name, affiliation, and one reason you think debate is important.
Great. Thanks, Rainer, and so happy to be here. It's great to meet the debaters. My name is Rishi Barwani, Director of Partnerships and Policy at Accountable Tech. And the debaters really hit so many good points as to why debate is important. From my perspective, it's important not only just to challenge our own beliefs or our own arguments, but to really appreciate where the other person is coming from, because if you're trying to debate in a sort of combative tone, you're unlikely to really win that person over. But if you can better appreciate where they're coming from, then you can build consensus and move people in the right direction. And in my experience, far more often than not, we all are trying to get to the same place, far more in common than we are different. And so through debate, I find it's much easier to appreciate somebody else's perspective and trying to build some real consensus to move things forward. So I'll stop there.
I'm Nancy Cooper. I'm the Global Editor-in-Chief of Newsweek. I'm truly delighted to be invited to participate in this because I believe in it really strongly. We just wrote a Newsweek mission statement, which Newsweek had never had before. And I'll read you part of it if I may. Newsweek speaks to and listens to readers across the political and cultural spectrum. That's part of it. And we believe vigorous, respectful, and honest debate is in the public interest. And especially that second part is really what we're here for, which is good faith debate, which I think we've all seen has deteriorated and hardly exists anymore. And I think that your discussion tonight about should social media be regulated has enormous impact on what civil discourse and civil debate is about. And your participation in this, I truly believe, is going to help you in life in your relationships, in your careers, in everything, but it's going to make you better citizens, and it's going to help strengthen civil discourse, which is extremely important. If there isn't good faith debate, as opposed to just the outrage economy, as Max referred to, I think it hurts the country, to be honest. So I'm really delighted by this project. I think it's important, and I'm really interested in hearing from all of you.
All right, good. I think I'm up next. Good evening, everybody. I'm Jason Downs. I am the Chief Deputy Attorney General here in DC. I work hand in glove with Attorney General Carl Racine, where part of our mission is to protect district consumers and residents. And so I am extremely excited to be here. I will tell you that we at the Office of Attorney General, we believe in promoting young people and frankly, hearing the ideas of young people, because young people fuel us and give us ideas of what policies we should be pursuing, what sorts of legislation we should introduce, what types of cases we should pursue. So I could not be more excited to listen to the thoughts of the young people on this call. And I'll note that I believe that, debate is one of the more important skills that you could be learning at this point in your life, because frankly, you're going to need it regardless of what you decide to do for a living. You're going to find yourself in a conflict. You're not going to agree with everyone all the time. And when you do, the best skills you're going to have are going to be your ability to articulate your position, to research your position, to make sure that you're able to convey it in a concise and persuasive manner. So you're really learning life skills right now. So I could not be more excited to participate. Thank you so much for having me tonight.
Ariel, I think you're next.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Ariel Fox Johnson, Senior Counsel for Global Policy with Common Sense Media. Common Sense is committed to helping all kids and families thrive in an increasingly digital world. I think tonight's debate is important for a few reasons. Focusing on one is that we really do need more debate and more thoughtful engagement with other sides and opinions. And I think social media is in large part a reason why we don't have thoughtful debate and discourse and engagement with the other sides, because of social media and targeting and filter bubbles and sensationalized content. To the extent anyone is debating social media these days or regulating it, it's usually lawmakers who themselves have never experienced social media, especially as teenagers. So I'm particularly looking forward tonight to hearing directly from teens themselves who have lived this experience. And I imagine that we're all in for a robust discussion. Thanks again for having me.
And yeah, thank you as well for having me. I'm Jeff Seibert. I was the former head of consumer product at Twitter and appeared in the film The Social Dilemma. And debate is actually central to where the film came from. So when I connected with Tristan Harris, this was way back in 2015, 2016, he actually hosted a dinner where we were debating, myself and people from Facebook and a number of people very involved in the social media industry, the pros and cons of these platforms. And it was actually that dinner was one of the reasons I ended up stepping down from the role. And we started to work on the film because we realized some of the negative repercussions. And so really excited for the debate tonight. This topic of regulation, we talked about, do we put it in the film or not? Is it good? Is it bad? And there was no clear answer. And so I'm really excited to hear how the students think about it and what we should go do.
Thank you very much, judges, sharing for being here, but also sharing why you think debate is so important. Now, we're going to move on to the main event. I know this is what you guys are here for. So the question, as many of you guys have referred to already, that our debaters will be arguing tonight is, should existing social media laws be reformed? So we have two teams, one from the Boston Debate League and one from the Washington Urban Debate League. The Boston Debate League's team argument is we should reform social media by making certain changes to Section 230. And the Washington team's argument is that we should nationalize / make social media a public good. Those are the two sides. So audience, we will need your help tonight. We, as the judges, will be asking questions later on. pay attention to also jot down some questions that come up for you, because there will be a section for you to submit your own questions as well that we'll be able to ask the students to answer. So let's kick things off. We will be starting with the Boston side. The first speaker is going to speak for 3 minutes, and I will, debaters, I will be keeping time as well. And then once you are at time, I will just put a fist in the air if your time is not matching mine as well. And then following that, the Washington Urban Debate League team will be questioning the Boston team. Whenever you're ready, I will start the time.
Before I start the timer, I'd like to say thank you to all the judges that are here who took their time to participate and listen to our arguments. And I will start. Our claim: the current existing social media law and norms are causing way too much harm to the population and needs reforming. What is Section 230? Section 230 of the Communication Decency Act says that an online platform can be treated as a publisher and is responsible for third-party content posted on their website. This protects online platforms from lawsuits if a user posts something illegal, harmful, false, or hateful. It also protects platforms from being held liable for their content moderation practices. The exact statement said that no provider or user of an interactive computer service shall be treated as a publisher or speaker of any information provided by another information content provider. The Korean law was made in 1996, which is a long time ago, 25 years ago to be exact. Things that happened 25 years ago include the first release of Microsoft Office, Jeff Bezos founding Amazon, etc. A lot of us, including the two teams that are debating against each other, were nowhere near alive. The internet looked a lot different back then. There were more blogs and social media, people posting their own ideas, businesses, and etc. The first social media platform was called 6 Degrees. This was not created up until 1997, 1 year prior to the law being created. Meaning, when this law was created, I doubt social media was even a passing thought due to how new it was. The next social media platform was MySpace, which took the popularity seat from 6 Degrees when it was created in 2003. Section 230 can become a law that prevents harmful things from being said or happening, creating a hard standard for social media companies to see all around the world. So what is social media? Social media are websites and applications that enable users to create and share content or to participate in social networking. The harms: social media is a space where a lot of bad people can come together and make plans to do terrible things. And when this happens, they fail to take accountability for the lack of intervention or fail to intervene at all. Even though these events were planned on their website and app, these companies still fail to own up to their faults. An example of this is an internal task force found that Facebook failed to take appropriate action against the Stop the Steal movement ahead of January 6th Capitol insurrection and hope the company could do better next time. Social media companies such as Facebook should be sued for their negligence, and they can afford to be sued. We can say that Facebook makes about $21.5 million per day. It is estimated that Facebook and its shares and stock are worth more than $150,000 million. Another example of the harm of social media is that, as it was stated in the Newswise article, as teens' use of social media has grown over the past decade, so too has the suicide rate among young people, with suicide now being the second leading cause of death among those ages 10 to 34. Many have suggested that social media is driving the increased suicide risk. Our solvency: online platform cannot be treated as a publisher. They are not liable for what others post if it's not their fault and it's not their problem and fault. That is a mentality that is known all around the U.S. and is something that needs to be changed. So existing social media laws should be reformed by making the following changes to Section 230. Companies can flag the comments posted as someone that works at the company can see, but not the user. If the incident occurs 3 times in a row, they should have a real human go and read the comments and determine if it is hate speech or not, creating more jobs and making sure that these issues are accurately being supervised with both AI and human opinions. Companies are already doing a system similar to this, but the system is where human beings such as ourselves can flag a comment or post that we believe is hate speech or inappropriate. An example of this is TikTok's reporting system. Section 230, again, does not need to be removed entirely, but instead reformed. Thank you, Judge.
All right, we are at time. It's just got hot in here. So we're gonna move on to the class examination. So that was the Boston team, just laid out their plan and also identifying like what's wrong with the current system. So now we invite the Washington Urban Debate League team to class examine the affirmative team, Boston team. You guys have 2 minutes for that.
Kaylee, do you want to start?
Yeah, it's 2 minutes, right? Or 3?
It's 2 minutes and I'll be keeping time.
Okay, great. I'll start. Okay. So first on, how much would this cost to the companies to implement?
It wouldn't cost a lot. Again, like how Richard was saying, they do make millions of dollars, and they already have systems in place kind of like this that's already being used.
All right. And what is preventing personal bias from the humans to come into play?
I feel like that's hard to say because in general, personal bias can get into even the AI system or even just in general, like how the TikTok system, how Richmond was talking about, how this already where us humans can just hold it down and press report. That's bias within itself because you might not like that, but somebody else might like it.
All right, Ranu, do you have any questions before I ask my next one?
Yeah. So this is a quick follow-up to that question. So aren't you still using those same algorithms that you just said are biased?
We didn't say that they should be using bias, but they should continue using the same algorithm that they have, but also add things on top of it.
Okay.
I guess a follow-up to that question is, are you guys changing the algorithms AI uses to flag some of the stuff?
No.
Okay, cool.
Let me ask this. So you said that you're going to try to like make these companies be held accountable. So are you basing like your solvency off the fact that these companies will be able to get sued?
Yes.
The threat of them getting the threat of getting sued is going to like be able to encourage them or influence them. Is that what you're saying? All right.
Okay, I have 12 seconds left. I mean, if I asked a question now, it would take up the time, but still, I think that's good.
All right. That was cross-examination. We will move to have the Washington team give the opening speech. Kesaranu, I believe you will be the first speaker. All right. Whenever you're ready, I'll start the time. Once again, I'll put up my fist when the time is over.
All right. Okay. I will start in 3, 2, 1. So first, okay, should we change how social media is being regulated? First, what is social media? To us, we see social media as a way to connect with our friends, connect with the world. However, it's really not that bright. Quote, you are a loser. You have no friends. Why don't you kill yourself? On the message that barraged a 12-year-old for months in 2017 until she could take it no more and killed herself. This is an example of dangers to social media written from an ABC article. Hence, we in Eleanor Roosevelt resolved that we should treat and regulate social media like a public utility. According to Jason Fernando from Investopedia.com, the two paying criteria that distinguish public good are that it must be non-rivalrous and non-excludable. By making social media accessible to everyone, this lowers the competition between social media platforms, making it less easier for users to influence social media space. According to Keifu Zhang, in his article, firms may acquire largely unintended and sometimes ambiguous product positioning and user-generated content, and that has a key role in determining the firm's market positions. This effect can be so strong, as in the case of social media networking sites, that the sites with similar designs can acquire differentiated market positions. Also, by making social media a public good, CEOs can't take away freedom of speech. In addition, the government will be able to monitor its own universal standards for social media conduct. These standards would include standards on hate, misinformation. We know a lot about that on the COVID vaccine, and that mature content stays mature. The opposing team makes no new standards, meaning the social media platforms are only going to be enforcing the standards that they themselves set. Now, let's talk more about the firm's plan. Their solvency relies completely on social media companies being scared of being sued. However, to quote Jefferson.edu, in that situation, the person with the most money wins. Essentially, what happens is that their team starts feeling an avalanche of emotions, and it doesn't matter if they lose time again. All that matters is that the other side with less money has to respond to these motions while paying a fortune to their lawyers. Moreover, the reform they use will cost millions of dollars for these companies. They need to be able to pay thousands of people. They need to be able to pay thousands of people with like a standard pay. To verify like whether these algorithms are right or not. And even so, they just admitted that the algorithms that they're using are algorithms that are biased anyway. So you really can't say that to solve. And according to a new report from the NYU's Center for Business and Human Rights, a growing body of social science research, such as well as Facebook's own actions in leaked documents, indicates an important relationship between social media algorithms, increased political polarization, and violent extremism. This means that, again, the algorithms will only flag posts with biased views, and we can't let the social media companies regulate themselves. So again, we have to vote. The vote to Woodle is the only real solution. In addition, Right. So over 72% of Americans use social media. I know that in the morning you and I are guilty of going on social media or going on Instagram or whatever to go on our phones. So, and it's to like go on social media platforms. So why not we make it a public good and stuff? Yeah, that's time.
All right. My last debate was in 2010. I'm glad because I don't want to really be against debating you guys right now. All right. So that was the opening speeches. We heard from the Boston team and we heard from the Washington team on their positions. And so we're going to go quickly to the cross-examination. So Boston, you get to cross-examine Washington team. Whenever you guys ready, it's 2 minutes for the cross-ex.
So Richmond, do you want to go first or do you want me to go first?
You may go first.
Okay, so our first question is, so should we get rid of the current system that is in place or should we be reforming it?
We should get rid of it. As like my partner stated in his speech, Section 230 reform would not cut it. And there's so many things that would happen that would just leave reform, like Section 230 reform as not an option.
So can you define what a public good is?
Yeah, I said it in the speech. Okay, according to the Jason Fernando from Investopedia.com, the two main criteria that distinguish a public good are that it must be non-rivalrous and non-excludable. Like, do you want me to explain what those two mean? Did you nod your head yes?
Oh, yes, I know my ideas. So my last question is, what standards are you putting in place exactly?
I guess I'll go on this one. And Kaylee, you can double.
Gotcha.
Like, okay, as in the speech, like there would be standards on hate, on misinformation, on like how mature content needs to stay mature for like mature and adults, like over 18 and stuff. And like like some things like that. And Kaylee, do you want to add?
Got you. So you can treat like a social media like a public good is like how you use it as the Department of Transportation, Department of Education, because we're constantly on social media and so many platforms and so many businesses happen on social media. So it'd be regulated like that. And then also like social media, like my partner stated, there's mature content regulation there. And then also it can be regulated just like a department or agency.
So my last question is, how much money will your plan take to be implemented?
One, this creates new jobs. So it's going to be in the same ballpark as how the reform of Section 230 would be, but Section 230 reform would be vastly and much more for companies, and it'd be a lot less for.
Quick answer because we are at time.
Okay.
All right. Man, this is getting good. All right, so that concludes the section of this debate in terms of the opening speeches. Following this, the debaters will be prepping, after questions from the judges, will be prepping for their closing speech. But in the meantime, we'd like to invite the judges in the audience to ask questions on either team's arguments. Students will respond to one of these questions now, and the others in their closing arguments. And we will start with the judges, but please limit yourself to one question total, and it can be for either team. Please be specific so we can make sure each team know what they're supposed to be answering. And in the audience members, please put your questions in the chat, and then we will select a few of them. Unfortunately, we can't select all of them, and we'll send them to the debaters so that they can make sure that they're addressing them in their closing speech. And judges, if you are ready, we can start with questions.
I have a question. I don't know if this is the way the process is supposed to work, but I want to ask all of you, should there be a statute of limitations on when you're liable, as it were, or held accountable for what you said on social media? If you wrote something when you're 17 and you're applying to college when you're 17 and a half, is that fair to hold you accountable to that? If you wrote something when you're 17 and you're now 35, applying for a job, is that fair? I mean, how do we sort through how we hold people accountable for what they said for social media, or do we not? Which is an argument as well.
So thank you, Nancy. We'll go to Rishi for your question. And then after that, each team will be able to select one question to answer.
Great. Thanks and great job to the debaters. That was fun to watch and comforting to know that I'm not actively participating. I don't want to get caught in the crosshairs of that. My question is for the DC team that's proposing nationalizing social media platforms. And my question is really around innovation and what we're defining as a social media platform. I'm going to date myself. I'm old enough to remember when Facebook was the news feed was the dominant platform. Then it was Instagram, Twitter came on. Now it's TikTok, which I couldn't say many things about. Don't really understand how it works. But when we're nationalizing social media, I guess I just want to ask prompt you guys to explain a little bit more about what that means and if there are any trade-offs around nationalizing what we have now. Does that essentially set the tools that we have in stone and limit us from creating newer tools?
All right. Another great question. Next, we move on to Jason for your question.
Sure. My question is for the Boston team. Who should be able to sue? Should it be the government? Should it be a private individual? Or should it be both?
All right. Thank you, Jason, for your question. Debaters, reminder, you should be noting down what the questions are so you can make sure you are answering them in your final speech. Moving on, we'll go to Ariel for next question.
Thank you. So my question is for the Washington team. If the government is overseeing and social media as, sort of a public utility or public square place, and the government has limits on what it can do to stop free speech or abridge other people's speech, how then will we be able to get rid of hate and misinformation on social media?
All right, you guys have your hands full. But last but not least, Jeff, for your question.
Thank you. I also have a question for the Washington team. And this is, okay, imagine social media was a well-regulated government entity. How do you prevent it from turning into an arm of sort of state media propaganda with policies that swing wildly from administration to administration?
Yeah. All right. Audience, please drop your questions in the chat and then we'll send some of them to the debaters as well. But debaters, I know you guys have been noting down the questions for you. Please select one of the questions that you want to answer right now. And then as you give your final speech, please try to incorporate as much as possible the answers to those questions, the other questions that you won't have time to answer at this very moment. We'll start with the Boston team. What question would you like to answer? And you have the floor. And I'll put just 2 minutes for this as the cap, just to make sure we're staying on time.
The question that I'm going to answer is the one about suing. And so I would say that the government shouldn't be able to pretty much sue because, again, like how I feel like I'm going to say it wrong, Ariel was saying about how it limits freedom of speech. It's kind of a little bit what our case is, at least my side talks about a little bit about the freedom of speech and the limitations to that. And so that the government is controlling what people can say and can't say. It's literally against the Constitution that they promote so much. So, yeah.
All right. And the Washington team, what question would you like to answer? And you guys will have 2 minutes for that as well.
So I'll pick how will we be able to get rid of hate speech if the government is a factor? So one, I think this question, currently at the moment, social media companies already do this. So like, right, you already see like hate speech already on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, stuff like that. And it's kind of like filtered out through a way that it's, selective. Yeah, selective. But if the government has or if a governmental agency has good guidelines and good regulations to see what is hate speech, what isn't, then we can actually, have a successful startup where we have no hate speech on social media because then there's governmental regulations in place.
Can I quickly add? We have time.
Yep, you can.
Okay, so as we were talking like at the beginning of the program from the movie, right? So these algorithms that the companies are using were built to like keep the chaos. They're built to like, make more money, right? So that's we won't be using those same algorithms, of course. We'll be making the algorithms so that they're actually doing what they're intended to do, to stop and to like filter through the hate and the stuff that doesn't really need to be said, and misinformation and stuff.
All right, you guys did great with time. All right, so this was a section of just answering the judges' questions. So now, teams, you will have 6 minutes to prep for your final speech. So that is going to be your closing argument, taking in what you heard from the first speech, what you guys heard from each side, and also the questions that were asked. Try and incorporate those things in your final speech to close out the debate part of this. So you guys have 6 minutes. And if you guys want to call each other, however you want to do it, I'll put 6 minutes on the clock for you guys to prep for this final speech. And while both teams are prepping, I will be passing it on to Max from Exposure Labs to share a little bit about how educators can host a debate like this in their own classrooms.
Thanks so much, Renner, and amazing stuff from all the debaters. I don't know how you keep up with that pace, and really great questions from the judges as well. As Renner said, I wanted to share a little bit about the classroom debate resource that we've developed and that we are essentially previewing with you all tonight. As we've seen from some of the debaters, effective argumentation really forces us to face and use reason to reckon with rather than categorically dismiss opposing views. And the stakes could not be higher. We all use our own opinions to make decisions that affect our countries, our communities every day, from who we elect to represent us to the people we fight for. Educators play a critical role in teaching the next generation to be well-informed, critical thinkers, and active participants in our democracy. And this resource was created to support that vital work. We created this, as I mentioned before, in collaboration with the Washington, D.C. and Boston Urban Debate Leagues, including actual students from those two leagues. And the idea is to create a resource and distribute this that will make debate accessible for students across the U.S., across the globe. So while our students tonight are seasoned debaters and have been doing this throughout their high school career, this 8 or so page resource really boils down this exercise in a way that can help educators bring debate and this topic of social media regulation into the classroom. The resource is really designed to be flexible. It's geared towards middle, high school, and university level. And so we really encourage educators to adapt it and either, kind of adapt it up, adapt it down, scaffold it as you need based on what grade level you're teaching. And I'm really encouraged to see of those that have registered kind of a good cross section of both universities, high schools, and middle schools all joining tonight. The resource is multidisciplinary, so we really see application for this resource in civics classes, English language arts classes, writing classes. So really hoping to see this be adapted and integrated in a multidisciplinary context. And it's also lightweight and flexible. So we understand that there's so many different constraints on students' time, on educators' time, especially in what is yet another challenging school year. And so the resource kind of is designed to require 2 to 2.5 hours. So this is something that can be done in the course of 1 or 2 class periods. It also can be something that is adapted for like a sort of capstone project. So something that's done over a number of different sessions. So to give you a little bit of a preview, a sneak peek, obviously you can't read all the text that's here, but this gives you a bird's eye view. Students will first begin with a screening of the social dilemma. And the resource features a set of prompts to get students thinking about different aspects of the issue, the inherent dilemmas, the inherent problems that they're seeing and being confronted with in the film. As I mentioned before, we're actually rolling out a 40-minute educational cut of the film next month. And so we have prompts in here both for the full feature and for the 40-minute cut as well, depending on what suits your needs. Mm-hmm. After screening the film, students then learn the building blocks of argumentation, including how to be persuasive and the rhetorical triangle. So introducing, the idea of logos, ethos, pathos, helping draw from each of these to form effective arguments. And then students dive into researching and crafting their arguments. To do this, we've included some additional resources that students can use for this, including some of our bonus interview clips that have yet to be released. So this will actually be sort of their debut to the public. And we've also created a policy primer where students can learn some of the various regulatory approaches that are currently being explored by lawmakers. So students do not need to be experts on Section 230. They do not need to be experts on free speech. We've sort of mapped out what kinds of policies lawmakers are currently weighing so that they have a starting point. Everyone who registered for today's event will be the very first to receive this resource in our follow-up email later this week. We'll also be posting it on our website along with a full suite of educational resources, including that 40-minute cut of the film and a Gen Z action guide in mid-October. So we're doing a lot more in this coming season and coming school year to engage and empower young students and young people around the world. Feel free to shoot us an email if you have questions about how to use this resource once we send it out later this week. And yeah, I'll kick it back to you, Rainer, to bring the debaters back for final arguments.
Yes, thank you, Max, for sharing these incredible resources with us. And I'm sure there's a lot of interest as well. So be on the lookout for the email with the link to the resources. All right, debaters, I hope you had a productive prep time. I know it must be the high stakes here this is the last speech of the debate round. So we're going to start with Boston again. They're going to give the first speech to give the final speech, and then we'll go to the Washington team to close us out. And then just a quick reminder for the audience and the judges. Again, the Boston team is arguing that we should reform social media by making certain changes to Section 230, and the Washington team is arguing that we should nationalize/make social media a public good. All right, Sarah, I believe you are giving the final speech for the Boston team. Whenever you're ready, I'll put 3 minutes on the clock and I'll start it.
So before you start your timer, I'd first like to say, thank you for everyone being here and supporting us and having this discussion with us. You may start your timer now. First, I'd like to remind you guys exactly what we're talking about. The current existing social media laws and norms are causing way too much harm to the population and needs reforming. Let me again remind you what Section 230 is. The exact statement says that no provider or user of an interactive computer service shall be treated as a publisher or speaker for any information provided by any information content provider. Now, the team is talking about having a government-run agency monitor social media platforms instead of the companies themselves, but the government cannot restrict speech due to the First Amendment right, freedom of speech. It is illegal if they do so. But a private company such as Facebook can because they own the platform. The way they can moderate it is protected by the First Amendment. The opposite team's views and plan does nothing more than censor people, not to protect the American people from hate speech, but to silence, threaten, arrest them, and take away their First Amendment rights. The consequences of government intrusion into the digital public space, Freedom House, Seibert Funk 19, for authorization and democratic governments alike, the potential for abuse presented by advanced social media surveillance is staggering. In 2019, Freedom House found that 47 of the 65 countries assessed featured arrests for users of political, social, or religious speech a record high. Monitoring designed to detect and deter protests will also help stifle democratic movements and authorization settings. Even in countries with considerable safeguards for fundamental freedoms, there are already reports of abuse. In the United Kingdom alone, nearly 9,000 activists from across the political spectrum, many of whom had no criminal background, using geolocation tracking, sentiment analysis on data scraps from Facebook and other platforms were monitored. Similar dynamics were evident in the United States, where leaked documents revealed in March of 2019 that CBP had created a list of 59 U.S. and foreign immigrant activists, journalists, lawyers, and Facebook group administrators who should be targeted for greater scrutiny at the U.S.-Mexico border, leading to arrests in 9 cases. ICE has also monitored social media in New York City to gather information on groups protesting the administration's immigration and gun control policies. Such profiling possesses a distinct threat to basic civil liberties. The opposing side is doing more harm than good, if any. They're just trying to limit the rights of the American people. America tends to be what we young people call a trendsetter. So the two largest trendsetters of the world, the US and UK, can neglect the constitutions that they created, what stops other countries from doing the same? These two countries will become trendsetters of limiting freedom of speech, as what my opponent is fighting for. This will target marginalized communities such as immigrants, Black and brown people. They are stopping activists and everyday civilians from speaking up against their government and holding them accountable. These companies should and need to be held accountable for the things they allow on their platform to be said, posted, and done. Time and time again, these companies such as Google, Facebook, Instagram, Reddit, etc., allow harmful things to be posted, whether in the comments of a post or posted independently. These things include but are not limited to telling people to die, threatening people in their lives, stalking, posting videos of horrible acts, posting knowingly false information to scare others or risk their lives. This team is not nationalizing social media. Oops, sorry, can I just finish my sentence? This team is not nationalizing the monitoring of social media, but instead making it a weapon against the American people. Thank you.
All right. Oh man, 3 minutes. I didn't know somebody could fit so much in. You guys are incredible at this. All right. So now, thank you, Zara, for the final speech for the Boston team. Now we are moving to the final speech for the Washington team, and Kaylee will take us home. Whenever you are ready, I'll start my time. Again, you have 3 minutes for your final argument.
Thank you. I'll be starting it now. So, how often do you check social media? Is it once a day, once an hour, or is it the first thing when you see when you wake up, or is it the last thing you see when you're going to sleep? Constantly by thousands, millions, and probably in the nation, billions of people. Some people use it for work. Some people use it for school. Some people operate their whole businesses on social media. And giving these companies the power to take away being judge, jury, and executor for these people to take away social media is unjust. For example, Hannah Shirley. Hannah Shirley was a 17-year-old girl on TikTok who would make TikTok dances and anime related content. She was then banned on TikTok for no absolute reason stated by TikTok by the AI. And the affirmative team has stated that they won't change the algorithms. If these algorithms don't change, then nothing is stopping them from harming and taking down someone else's account again and again and again. If algorithms don't change, then hate speech will continue. So when we were asked, what is a social media platform? Social media platforms are broad. They could be LinkedIn, they could be WhatsApp. So creating specific regulations under a governmental agency for different categories would be the best strategy here. Also, we were asked how will we limit state propaganda? And the agency would be bipartisan, not allowing state propaganda to be on the platforms. And then also we were asked, how do we take into accountability for when somebody is 17 and to somehow somebody goes to 35 and they might have posted something bad. One, there's several different factors in, and the regulation would take into account there. SFS Weekly says, with Facebook and its peers reeling from the discourses of data breaches, alliances with anti-Semitic crisis PR forums, and general malfeasance, momentum may be growing to regulate social media or even break these companies up the way of the government did with AT&T in 1984 and almost did with Microsoft barely a decade later. In short term, that may lead to further balkanization of public resources as people see refuge in echo chambers. This already shows that this has happened before where the government has taken on social media companies. The Hill says social media platforms have outgrown their initial mission due to their sheer size and fact that they now constitute the public square. With Section 230 reform, it would be very costly. And according to Brookings Institute, Facebook has over 1.7 billion active daily users. YouTube has over 7,200 or 200,000 hours of video uploaded to its site each and every single day. That's a lot of time. So one, that's a lot of money. Algorithms don't change. And creating social media as a public good would allow good regulation, and it would allow good regulation for future to come. That's my time.
Yes, indeed. Just a huge congratulations to both teams for an incredible debate. Once again, I am very fortunate that I graduated a long time ago and I don't have to be participating in this. So yeah, shout out to both teams. You guys did an incredible job. Now, judges, thank you for taking the time to do this, but I'm glad I'm not part of this panel right now, as I know you guys have a really tough decision to make. So judges, you have about 5 minutes to fill out your poll, submit your answer as well. And please don't confer with each other, just make this decision. And after that, we will announce the winner. So as judges, just put quickly 5 minutes on here. As judges are deliberating, I just wanted to take the time to just share a little bit about the Boston Debate League and also the Washington Urban Debate League. As you guys have just witnessed, this is the program that we try to put on at the local level, in Boston and also in Washington, D.C. The BDL and Washington Urban Debate League work with hundreds of students in dozens of schools in Boston and DC to bring programs to schools that otherwise would not have access to this activity. Historically, debate has been very exclusive and a lot of schools did not have them. This is the root of the Urban Debate League movement, and this is why the Boston Debate League exists and why the Washington Urban Debate League exists. And one way to get involved, I know some of you guys are watching Probably Inspired, is to volunteer. So you can visit each league's website for more info. Coming up, we have the Washington Urban Debate League. They have their tournament on October 16th coming up. So if you guys want to see more of this, please sign up. And the Boston Debate League also has scrimmages coming up that starting on October 13th to the 15th, and then another set of scrimmages from the October 20th to the 21st. Again, if you go on the website, you will be able to see the times that you can sign up to judge. And some of those things are virtual. So even if you are on the other side of the country, you can also participate and judge and support our mission. And of course, another way to support our programming is to donate, which can be done directly through both leagues' websites. Funding for organizations means that we can continue to bring debate programs to more schools. We have a school model where we partner with different schools and we bring policy debate into the different schools. And just a quick note, I mean, a lot of times you hear an organization will talk about how their program is transformative. And we don't use that word lightly, and we truly believe this is a transformative activity. I can speak for myself. I came to this country when I was 13. I did not speak one lick of English. I'm Haitian. And I joined this activity actually reluctantly because my older brother dragged me into it. And I just remember just sweating profusely and just not wanting to do this. I'm like, this is not for me. It involves speaking in front of people. And then after doing it and just sticking with it, I just saw the power that it had in terms of just embracing, talking about in public and your critical thinking skills. And then this other piece of self-discovery, just recognizing I can do this and I have a voice and I have something to say. So that is something that we try to bring to every school. And we hope every student who goes through our program, by the time they leave, they can understand the power of their voice. And as we've seen just now, students, talking about current issues in a way that we adults don't even do. And this is the essential part of this program that we want to continue to bring to every school in Boston and of course in DC as well. So if you guys are interested, please go on our websites to help support this mission so we can continue to bring public discourse, civil discourse, as past few years have been lacking that into this, especially as it relates to social media as well. There's just so much information, as we've heard, and the need to be able to filter those things out, the need to be able to suspend emotional reasoning, subject position, all these other things that we're trying to combat. This is the way. At least this is one of the ways to actually make a dent on that. So thank you guys for participating. And as we wait for the judges, take a few moments to visit those websites and support the mission. All right, I think some of the posts are starting to come in. Judges, I'm going to give you the opportunity to give feedback first, and then we'll announce the winner. So we'll start with Ariel first to give the feedback. You guys have 2 minutes, and then we'll continue down. Then we'll be Jason, Jeff, Nancy, and then Rishi.
Great, thank you. Everyone was excellent, and I was never a debater, and this is confirming that was probably a smart decision. So I just wanted to highlight a couple arguments that I found really convincing. Boston team, I really felt like you did a great job of pulling evidence about how 230 was outdated and, sort of predates social media. I also thought there was a lot of really good, scary evidence on other harms of social media, like privacy data collection. I think you could do a better job at connecting those to the Section 230 debate, because I was a little lost for a second, but certainly very scary, compelling evidence, and 230 is not working, came through. Washington, I really liked how you honed in on the point that we can't trust the companies, and just giving them a little more leeway is not gonna fix things. And that rang very true for me, and I thought you explained that position very well. I also really liked the point that was made in a response about how there will be less hate and misinformation if government is running things, because they won't be profiting off of hate and misinformation and amplifying viral stuff. And I think that point could have been maybe made more effective earlier, because it was a good point, but I didn't get it until it was in response. But everyone did excellent job, and thank you.
All right, thank you. We'll move on to Jason. Your feedback.
All right. So I echo a lot of the comments that have been made. You all are excellent. Some of the comments I'm going to give are going to be related to this particular problem, but just in debating in general. So I'll start with debating in general. I am not familiar with the format of a debate in general, but I will say that I think the style seems to be to talk really fast. So I understand it. I think that's just how it works in the debate world. So I get that. In the outside of the debate context, everything that you did tonight was excellent. But I would caution you to slow down a bit when you're sort of trying to convince other people in the real world. And your structure of all of your arguments, opening and closing, was excellent. Most of you led with a structure where you gave us your conclusion, which means you told us where you were going. Then you you sort of defined the problem and then backed up your conclusion. So I appreciated your structure. The point I'm making here is whenever you're in a debate, or if you're just in a conversation with someone you're trying to convince, I would encourage you to use the same structure that you used here. Boston team, in your opening statement, I really appreciated the comments about 6 Degrees and MySpace and the first version of Microsoft. The reason I appreciated it was because you related it to something that your audience would understand, right? And so that, again, that's a skill that you should take with you outside of this context. Always try to find something that your audience would understand. For example, I am terrible with distances. So if you tell me that it's about a half a football field away, I understand it, right? And so what you just did was you made this, sort of this thing real to your listener, and I really appreciated that. Washington team, one thing that I really appreciated is that in your opening statement, of all places, you were able to, it was either your opening, you were able to pivot and bring up things that were stated in your opponent's opening statement. So you were able to think on your feet. The example that comes to mind is they just admitted that the algorithms that they use are biased, right? And so in other words, you were listening and then you incorporated that into a planned opening statement. That's a skill that's going to take you a really long way. Last comment I have is that always look for ways to find solutions to problems, right? So in general in life, people can always find problems, but try to find solutions to those problems. And so when I think I asked a hard question, unfair sort of, about who should sue. And the answer there, it started off with well, the government should not be able to sue, and here's why. And I understand the response, setting aside that, but I would say who should be able to sue and why, as opposed to framing it in the negative. But either way, super thoughtful, incredibly prepared. Frankly, I know many lawyers that could not have done what you all did today. So excellent work.
Amazing. Thank you. We'll move on next with Jeff.
Awesome. Well, I echo all of that. You both did an amazing job on this debate and really appreciated all of the points and research you did. Boston team, the history lesson at the start was amazing. And it really, I think, brought it home for the judges because we have all lived this, like LiveJournal and MySpace and Facebook and Instagram and Snapchat and TikTok and so on. It's just like, it's amazing how quickly this space moves, which of course was also a challenge in these arguments because any government step, whether it's a law change or nationalization or something, may just be too slow for this space. And so Washington team, I think you did a fantastic job pointing out that maybe the Section 230 reform isn't enough. It's like not gone far enough. However, I also think full nationalization may be a bridge too far. And I think that came up in terms of free speech concerns. And so what I do love, though, is that both teams recognized right off the bat that algorithms are biased. And that is inescapably true. There is nothing the industry can do about that. And so what matters is how they are biased and what their goal states are. And I'd encourage you to think through what is biasing them. And in that sense, it's often the business model. And so these companies want their users to click more ads because that's how they make money. And so these algorithms are designed to addict you to the product so that every morning when you wake up, it's the first thing you do. And so for those doing future debates, I think a really deep dive on the actual business model, and maybe there's a middle ground between not government nationalization and you just avoid the profits, but shifting who's paying and why they're paying and what they're paying for might actually affect a lot of the changes we're all seeking here. So, but really, really impressive job.
All right. Thank you, Jeff. Next, we'll move on with Nancy.
You were really impressive, all of you. Very interesting. It was very tough to decide who, quote, won, because I don't think either of you lost. As Jeff and Kaylee said, you all brought, and Ariel, sorry, said you brought out the nuances of this argument, and it's a very tough argument. There isn't a clear right answer or wrong answer, and I think you all delved into what the implications of these decisions might be. You know, Kaylee, I liked what you said about hate speech. I think that's very important for us to talk about. You know, how do we encourage or accept hate speech, and how do we quash it while still having good faith debate about things? And Richie, you know, talking about stopping hate speech and that this isn't an acceptable way. This isn't a good faith argument. So I thought you were all really interesting about that. And it was very tough to decide who, again, quote, won. But I'm very impressed by all of you. And the discussion about whether the cost is too high and too dangerous, you know, for the public good, for us to ignore this growing problem, I think is really important. So congratulations really to all of you. And I know it sounds like a cliche, but truly there isn't a loser here. You know, you all were very impressive and interesting, thoughtful, smart. I agree with, you know, the idea that you spoke a little too fast, that I know you're trying to get in all your arguments, but it was a little tough to follow, but really, really super job. Many, many congrats and respects.
Thank you, Nancy, for feedback. Last but not least, but we'll go to Rishi for the feedback.
Great. Thanks, Rainer. And want to echo what my fellow judges have said. Each of you were exceptional, and a huge congratulations on getting to this point. I'm sure it took a lot of work and a lot of practice and a lot of hours after school, but it really shows. Each of you were just so exceptional. And so just want to congratulate you all on getting to this point. So excited to see what's next for you all and see where you end up in 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years. feedback, I want to make clear that we're splitting hairs here because again, each of you were so great, but constructive criticism is always helpful. I'll start on the positive note. The Boston team, my fellow judges here have called this out, but the examples of how our internet laws are outdated, that's great. I mean, as Jason said, that's relatable. It's also a little bit funny. So it kind of draws people in more. It gets people paying attention. And those sort of hooks, whenever you're opening with an argument, I think there's some value in that and being relatable and connecting with the audience. So that was just a great job. The DC team, and I think Ariel might have mentioned this earlier, you all did just such a great job identifying just one weakness in their argument, this idea that algorithms aren't perfect and in fact might be enhancing or producing discriminatory outcomes. And you really latched onto it to say, well, then we can't increase our dependence on them or over rely on AI. And that was hard, I think, for the Boston team to overcome. You guys did a good job, trying to rebut, but that was just interesting to see. And so, Zaira, you did a great job, like in live time, producing examples, which was great and really, really impressive. On the, what maybe could have been a little bit stronger, again, splitting hairs here. For the Boston team, you laid out this idea that our internet laws are outdated and did a great job with that. And you ticked through so many of the harms. So right up until that point, it was very tight, right? Like, here's this problem. Our internet laws are back in the 90s. People were using dial-up. We weren't even born yet. Here are all the harms that have come out from this outdated system. I think it could have been a little bit tighter tying 230 reform back to those harms and maybe producing some of those examples to say, and if we change 230, well, here's this harm that we name checked 30 seconds ago and maybe 200 words ago with how quick you guys were getting through everything. But here's how a fix to 230 would have repaired that. And so if we adjusted 230, then in the future we won't deal with these harms. For the DC team, I thought you guys did a really good job setting up the argument, rebutting the argument, but I do think you could have done a slightly better job. And I think Jeff kind of called this point out too in name checking the incentive structure. And so, as Jeff laid it out much more eloquently than I can, it was indeed I'm in the ground building these tools, or I just examined them here. But those, the sort of nexus of all of these problems, whether it's discriminatory outcomes or hateful content, is that, these for-profit companies are driving towards increased revenue and profit. And so there's, an underlying piece there that's so compelling about a national structure is that you're eliminating that profit incentive. And theoretically, you can replace that with other incentives like producing healthy debate or identifying teens who might be experiencing anxiety and depression, pushing them toward helpful resources or to reach out for help. So I think, that piece could have been a little bit tighter, but all in all, you guys did an incredible job. I'm really grateful to have been able to participate as a judge, and I hope you guys had as much fun as we did watching.
Thank you, judges, for your feedback. Before I move on to announce the winner, I'm not sure if this has been said, but I think just your presence here communicates to the students, just like I think traditional education, a lot of the times, and this is a part of this activity, it's like the student is the vessel and then just like they're being, and then the teachers in front of the classroom, and this kind of reverse that. And it's like you guys are here listening to them, I think communicates something as well. So thank you guys for being here. Moving on to announce the winner. As we do tournaments in Boston, I'm sure David does this as well. This is actually my least favorite part because, as Nancy was saying, like, you guys truly did such a great job that to really say is a winner is a loser. It really doesn't capture the spirit of this, but this is the structure, and I will go and announce it. But I just want you guys to know that you guys did an incredible job, as the judges have mentioned. So just something to definitely pat yourself on the back for. But I will announce the winner, and drum roll, please. On a 4-1 decision. Actually, let me make sure I read this correctly so I don't pull a Steve Harvey here. On a 4-1 decision in favor of Boston, Boston is the winner. Winning is not the objective of this, and you guys did such an incredible job. So thank you guys for participating and making me grateful that I'm not still debating during this time. So Absolutely great job by everybody. I will send it now to Max to close us out.
Thanks so much, Ranner, and congrats to all the students. As everyone has said many times over, you're all winners, and really what we're focused on is, trying to empower young people to share their views, share their perspectives, and really get those into the hands of people who are making decisions on this issue. There's actually Senate hearings taking place this week on Thursday, so this couldn't be more timely. And hopefully by launching this project, we can ensure that young people do have a seat at the table at what is otherwise, sort of closed door hearings in DC. So with that, thank you to everyone. Thank you to our judges. Thank you to the Washington, DC, and Boston Urban Debate Leagues and both teams. We're so grateful to have your participation in this project. Thank you to Newsweek. And we look forward to sharing the resource with you in our follow-up email and having your participation across this school year. Thank you.